The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports. This is the Spurs Postcast, your instant game reaction for the San Antonio Spurs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
125-92 this evening on the back of Victor Wembanyama's monster showing. I want to make sure I get every single stat here right, because it is, we know he's been an anomaly. He is an anomaly. And it just kind of feels like one of these things where there's something else and it just kind of writes itself. So the final number looks like this: 40 points on 15 of 21 shooting, 15 rebounds, along with 3 blocks, a plus 31 in 30 minutes of work. Welcome back after 8 months. It's easy to sit here and wax poetic about what this guy has done, but it just feels like, Devin, tonight, again, another chapter after Victor Wembanyama's book. Obviously, year 3, there's plenty left to go. But this evening, it's something that we're going to be talking about for a long time in San Antonio.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Victor, give him credit. He got in the lab in his time off. But he was very efficient in what he did. A lot of back-to-the-basket moves, using the glass. We've seen that for years with San Antonio. And he was just, he took the shots he wanted to take tonight, and that's why he had a lot of success.
Yeah, and I think that is something that you've heard a lot around here in Victor's infancy so far in San Antonio. These first couple of years, people love to just kind of defer back to he's 7'5". Get
right
in the paint, get your butt in the paint, take advantage of the fact that you're that tall. And that had become a little bit of the narrative during that time, during those first few years. But I think tonight, and you said it very well there, it felt like this is one of the few times that there was a real asserted effort on him to do that. And it didn't even particularly matter who was guarding him, because this is not a nobody who was guarding him. This is Anthony Davis, who's drawing that assignment for most of the night. Derek Lively, one of the premier young defenders in the sport, and he's just working through these guys. And it felt like tonight there was an element of no fear. Not that Victor really tends to have any fear, but it just felt like a different Wemby tonight.
No, and, sometimes you're going to have to excuse my language on this show because I get fired up. I was fired up during the game. But Victor was a pissed off dog, and that's the way he played. And if he can do that with the other contributions and the things that the Spurs have done with their roster, this team's going to be very good. I know it's game 1, but, like I said, Victor, he determined what he wanted to do tonight. It wasn't a lot of threes being fired up, some of the one-legged stuff you've seen in the past. No, he got to his spot of what he's been working on a daily basis, and he was very, very effective.
Yeah, very efficient, collectively all the way around. And this is something we're going to hit on a little bit more because, as we know, Wemby's going to get the highlights. He's going to be the lead on SportsCenter tonight. He's going to be all over social media. He already is. But collectively, from top to bottom, you don't put up a 125-92 victory without a little bit of balance. And there was I guess a little bit more than a little bit of balance. Stephon Castle, 22 points, 7 rebounds to go along with 6 assists. Devin Vassell was in the starting lineup today, of course, with De'Aaron Fox out of the starting lineup because of the hamstring situation. Jeremy Sohan as well. He puts up 13. Dylan Harper in his debut, 14 points, make that 15 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists on 7 of 14 shooting, a majority of that coming in the second half in a battle with him, of course, and fellow rookie Cooper Flagg. That's something we'll touch on in a little bit. But you and I were texting during the game, and I think kind of what we kind of agreed upon was that, especially, when you're with the dynamic of not having De'Aaron Fox around a little bit, was that there's going to be a lot of nights where that offense in the half court is going to stagnate. Victor's not going to go up there and put up 43 and 50 and everything.
Right.
What he will do is play defense. And what the team will do as a whole is play defense. And it felt like that really kind of set the tempo this evening. Dallas held under 40% shooting, never really in the second half did they gain any kinds of offensive rhythm. And it certainly seems that defense right now, it's cliche, but that's going to be the sticking point of what's going to determine the long-term success of this team, Devin.
Well, I take you back to our conversation a couple of days ago about how competitive it's been in the Spurs practice. I don't have to be there to realize that when you have a roster the way they do, it's going to be very competitive. And you saw that tonight. I thought Stephon Castle played, very well. And, Dylan Harper, showed some signs late. But what about a guy like Keldon, a guy like Vassell, where these guys are, getting paid a lot of money, and Vassell had a little run going there in the second quarter, and Keldon, that's just the way he plays. He's the dog. He's a hard worker. He's all over the glass. He's going to give you everything that he has. And so when you see this together, and then you have Victor play like that, and like you said, some nights Victor's not going to play like that, but you have enough now in the system where you're going to be able to get this done and maybe take some of the slack, from Victor when he doesn't have one of these Superman performances.
Tonight was interesting in this standpoint that it felt as if they were going into a situation where without De'Aaron Fox, without Jeremy Sohan, they were going to have to be a little bit creative around the dynamic of what they wanted to do going into this new team. Because in a lot of respects, last year, they didn't particularly have that. And with Victor out, of course. And what I like seeing so far was the Dylan Harper aspect of it. And I think getting him acclimated as well. Because the first few minutes, first quarter and a half that he was in, he looked like a rookie, Devin. He looked like a guy who was not doing that before.
The nerves were in there. Yeah, the nerves were in there. But he kicked him out, and he ended up playing well. The
final stat line for Harper, again, reads 15 points, 4 rebounds, 2 dimes, 7 of 14 shooting in 23 minutes. The opposite side of things, of course, Cooper Flagg was the name on the marquee, along with Wemby entering to the evening. He goes for 10 points, 10 rebounds, 4 of 13 on field, 32 minutes. Held scoreless in the first half, Cooper Flagg was. I'm going to deflect back to you because very few people can talk about the sentiment of being a rookie.
Right.
You have been in this spot. You have faced the bright lights. It's easy for me to go up here and say things like, exactly that. Like the stage was bright, you understand it. But for someone who's been in that spot, stepped on the floor for the first time, how does one kind of manage the jitters like that in your mind?
Well, it's very difficult. My first game, playing in the NBA, that was the first time, I had played in, in front of so many fans. But I always looked at the game different growing up anyway. I never really tried to stare in the stands. So whether we're playing at St. George or where we're playing at UTSA or at the Frostbank Center, didn't really matter to me. But, a lot of these guys, nowadays, your Dylan Harpers, your Cooper Flaggs, they've played so many big-time AAU games, for them, it's like finally, we get to see everybody gets to see me play at this level. So, for both of them, I'm going to say, you look at the numbers and, they are what they are. But Dallas is trying to figure out with him, and they have a lot of time to do it. And same thing with Dylan Harper, because, once De'Aaron Fox comes back, you're going to have a good problem, right? That's another guy to throw in the mix. So you got time to figure this thing out, but I'm glad you got 2 more rookies that are going to be a part of the NBA for a very long time.
Yeah, Carter Bryant, we haven't even talked about him. He did get a handful of minutes in the first half, largely inconsequential. I know you're referring to Flagg, but this kind of sparks the Carter Bryant. Largely inconsequential minutes, got a few in the first half, did go scoreless in his 9 minutes of work. Looking ahead a little bit, you've been on teams that have started off hot, have won on opening night, have lost on opening night, have played poorly on opening night, have started off red hot the first few games. You've, for better or worse, you've experienced a little bit of everything. When you have a strong start in just about every single capacity of the game, how does one kind of compartmentalize that a little bit? Just be like, all right, game one's out of the way. Now it's on to New Orleans. How does that, you get past that right away, do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a struggle the last few years, some tough times here in San Antonio. This, technically is 6 games in a row here, counting the preseason. And I had talked to you about that and, how, going into this game, I didn't want them thinking just because it was 5-0, how this first game was going to go. Dallas was going to be ready for them. But I'm glad I don't, have to predict games because the Spurs came out, did everything that they absolutely needed to do. Now, you're one of the coaches, with the Spurs, you tell them, congratulations, great win, and we're on to New Orleans. But in a sense, you have to be proud of how these guys came out and handled, everything that went into this game, a nationally televised game, everybody looking at what, Cooper Flagg was going to do. And they came out and it seemed like the Spurs took that personal and they had a great night. And now you go into New Orleans, their team is expected to do a lot this year. So it's going to be a great game, another great game, and another great test.
We can talk about the X's and O's, the guys on the floor, in my mind. Understandably so, those are the ones who garner most of the attention, right? But something I really liked was it felt with Mitch Johnson. It felt, and again, understandably so, it felt like it was always Pop's team, or it was still Pop's team, and there was just kind of a gray area whether or not it would truly become his team, and kind of putting myself, in his shoes. I'm sure that was, not frustrating, but there's a sense of anxiety. Your new head coach, you're filling in for the greatest of all time. You're not sure if that job's going to be a long-term thing. Particular. They showed a clip on the ESPN broadcast tonight where he is kind of parallel to the classic "I want some nasty Pop" quote that we've been seeing for years. Really, and right. It's tremendous too early to say that this was Mitch's moment. I want some nasty, whatever. It was not that. We know that. But what I liked, and this was something we didn't see from Mitch Johnson last season, was that confidence. You talk so much of a player's confidence, a confidence from the coach that's saying, this is my team now, guys. This is my team. I'm the guy in charge. I feel good. You trust me. I trust you. Let's go out and do some things. And I thought I'm glad ESPN showed that, because that was, I think, a real kind of eye-opener for a lot of people here in San Antonio that, hey, different times. And it's a good start early with Mitch.
Yeah, so with me, the first, say 10 minutes of the game, I was going to watch the rotations and as far as, what players are going to be playing. And I was trying to see if that was going to be the same. Like if he's taking a little bit from Pop, but then he's putting his own little spin on it, type deal.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that I'm watching, but you can definitely tell that, he's been around Pop a very long time. And, the guys that are going to be on the floor and the guys that were on the floor, that got the ball rolling. Obviously, you have your Wemby, that's your superstar. But, I'm telling you, those guys that are around him, I think that they're starting to understand who it is that they're playing with, because not everybody gets to play with a Wemby. Mm-hmm. Not everybody gets to play with a guy like a guy like Tim Duncan. And if you don't take advantage of it, you're going to be somewhere else. And and I think back to, like I said, there's a couple offensive rebounds that Keldon Johnson just outworks. The Mavericks. It kept the ball alive, and he gets these and ones. And I'm saying, Keldon does Keldon just play this way? Or is he starting to understand what it means to put a Spurs jersey on? Because there's a big difference.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
In 82 games this season, the New York Knicks could not beat the Cleveland Cavaliers.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
XJ, this is your wheelhouse, man. I will leave it to you. What did you think about that finish from the Knicks?
I think Mike Brown is a fan of Locked On Knicks. I think Mike Brown is a fan of Hot Hand Theory. I think Mike Brown and I are going to be buddies this year because what we saw was Deuce McBride plus the regular four starters dominate the game. And make no mistake about it, they dominated the game. Obviously, they played around 7 minutes, so there's only so much you can do in 7 minutes. They were +6 across those 7 minutes. Played at a high-speed pace, high offensive effectiveness, excellent defensive effectiveness despite some shakiness in the final 4 minutes, which we can talk about. And they closed the game. And like you said, no Josh Hart, no Mitchell Robinson, obviously. That situation, hopefully, knock on a whole bunch of wood everywhere, it won't be the case much in the future. But in this situation, like you said, Mike Brown, one of his 5 best players to close the game, and they performed. And the lineup looks like, everything I and many others thought it could be. And I hope we see a bunch more of it. I hope this is encouraging. This is against the best team in the Eastern Conference last season, a dominant team, like you mentioned in the intro, a team that the Knicks could not defeat. And they took them out. And they took them out with really, really effective play, a lot of different lineups. And we'll talk about some of that stuff. But really, to me, my biggest takeaway was Deuce plus the starters, extremely effective and borderline dominant in the minutes that they played, especially in the first half, really ran the Cavs off the floor. So, yeah, I'm super excited to see what I just saw, and hopefully we see it a lot more.
Yeah, I'll acknowledge what happened in this game just confirmed my preconceived biases of what I thought were wrong with last year's team. So I might be a little too high on the 1 game sample size, but the Knicks just did everything in this game that we were told over and over again for reasons that didn't really make sense. They weren't allowed to do last year, including, again, maybe we'll see if this is actually like a consistent thing under Mike Brown when he has to pick between Deuce, Josh, and Mitchell Robinson versus Deuce and Ariel Hukporti. But closing with Deuce, and it just made the Knicks so difficult to guard at the end of this game. And you saw Cleveland over and over again because the Knicks have arguably the best closer on planet Earth in Jalen Brunson, blitz him to take the ball out of his hands, and the Knicks were able to find just really easy buckets off of that with Brunson getting off the ball, giving it to Mikal Bridges, led to what was ultimately the game-sealing 3 where he probed, sprayed it into the right corner. OG Anunoby, that was like the second time in the game the Knicks had that exact sequence. OG hit just a back-breaking 3 to make it 113-105. Knicks, and then OG like putting the exclamation point on it after Brunson and Mikal both missed like would-be daggers. Brunson had a left wing 3. Mikal had a baseline ISO on Jared Allen that just went in and out. That would have been such a sweet shot after like what was just a fantastic debut for him after such a shaky debut 365 days ago. OG absolutely seals the game. Ed Reed type moment, reading the Cavs inbound. It was going to Evan Mobley. He flies off his man, knocks the ball to Jalen Brunson, keeps running the floor, little double pump reverse, cherry on top of a win that, again, you have the grain of salt that Cleveland was missing 3 of their top 7, right? No Max Strus, no Darius Garland, no DeAndre Hunter. It was very obvious Cleveland was missing those guys. Again, the Knicks were missing their guys too, but like I don't know how you could walk away from this opening game anything but excited. Jeremy Cohen's bold prediction, XJ, on our show coming into the season was that the Knicks would go from far and away the worst bench scoring team in the NBA, 21 points per game last year, to 35 this year. We were debating how feasible that was. The New York Knicks finished this game with, oh my goodness, I thought I would have it in ESPN team stats, but I don't. So I'm just going to do the math in real time. I think it was around 40 bench points. They finished with 13, 28. They finished with, sorry, I got a little excited. 35 bench points, right on Jeremy Cohen's mark. That's exciting. They play 11 guys despite missing 2 surefire pieces of their rotation by the 1 second mark of the second quarter. Again, I don't know if you want to bounce on any of that. You want to stick with the end of the game. There was just so much to like in this one.
Couple of things here. It was very funny to see Kenny Atkinson send a soft double to Jalen Brunson at the end of the game. These weren't even off of pick and rolls. These were just soft doubles where they're bringing 2 to Jalen Brunson with the ball up really, really high. Very ironically, the Knicks' own coach, Mike Brown, when he was the Kings coach, played this same style of defense against Jalen Brunson towards the end of a Sacramento Kings New York Knicks game. And Josh Hart had a field day with the 4-on-3s that he got on the back end of that. That is not a feasible way to attack the Knicks, and they were even more devastating with it with their 5-out lineup. It is infeasible to blitz Brunson in these situations, and that's something I think we're going to see pay huge dividends as the season goes on when we see this lineup, especially late in games. And maybe Mike Brown will really like that, and like that, he can get Jalen Brunson in isolations whenever he wants, because you cannot blitz them. They will just swing, and it's going to a open shooter who probably shoots 40% from wherever he's shooting from. And so that puts you at a huge disadvantage if you're the defense in all of these late game situations. So I really love that. I really love that optionality that the 5-out lineup gives them, especially with Deuce McBride on the court. And then you mentioned the 11 guys playing in the game. That I was so excited about that. It is such a juxtaposition when we're talking 11 guys playing. We're talking keeping starters minutes low. I think only OG Anunoby played over 34 minutes in this game, which was really incredible to see. And we have guys like Tyler Kolek playing a bunch of minutes. Like you said, we maybe we'll talk about it more later, but just in theory, overall, the thematic idea of Mike Brown really enacting everything that, like you said, we were told for various reasons, this stuff can't happen. You can't do it. And you do it, and you beat and you knock off the Cleveland Cavaliers somehow in game 1 to open the season. So all of that's super exciting. And I'm sure we'll get into more details as this episode goes on, but there's just so much to get into. And to me, I'm not a 1 game sample size kind of guy. Obviously, I'm a huge sample size kind of guy before I make my assessments, but you really couldn't ask for more in the first game, in my opinion.
The Giants get their guy. Tony Vitello is hired.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast.
They did it. They actually did it. Buster Posey actually did it. Zach Manassian actually did it. Ownership actually did it. They took the home run grand slam swing. Now, they took the swing. We still don't know if they have connected or not. That remains to be seen, and we will know much more after this season and in the seasons to come. But Tony Vitello, somebody that I have followed, like I told y'all, I don't know if anyone is more equipped to handle this in the San Francisco Bay, Northern California area than me, because as an ex-college baseball player, I watch a lot of college baseball, and I've been a fan of Tennessee baseball for as long as Tony Vitello has been doing it. And they've knocked on the door time and time again. They got that World Series, and he has turned himself into a larger-than-life person out there in Knoxville, and he turned it all down, and he left it all to challenge himself and to see if he can do this at the next level, a level where he hasn't played, a level where he has not coached, a level that he is not that familiar with. And I want to give kudos to him for taking a chance. It's not easy to take a chance in life, especially when you're comfortable, especially when you're getting paid essentially the same amount of money to be comfortable. We'll get into that as well. And from Buster Posey's side of things, I did not see this coming. I have looped Buster Posey and Madison Bumgarner into the same group where Madison Bumgarner is mad at Yasiel Puig bat flipping and things like that. And Buster Posey, I put him in the same category. This is something I did not see coming. And as far as the timeline, how we got here. I'm be honest with you. A big shout out to Locked On Vols, Eric Kane. So Eric Kane, he does a great job for the Locked On Network. Eric Kane, he reached out to me and he said, Alan, there might be something going on here. He asked me what my thought was on it. And at the time, I thought it was just a rumor. I thought it was just something where it went viral on social media, as things tend to do nowadays. And at that time, Eric wasn't sure either, but he said, no, he was the first person from that area to tell me, no, there's actually rumblings out here. Andrew Baggerly, of course, initially got it and said, hey, there might be something that you guys need to keep in your back pocket or on the back burner here. And when Nick Hundley decided to pull out, I think it became abundantly clear that Buster Posey was not messing around. And more importantly, Buster Posey wanted something new. Nick Hundley hadn't been a manager before. Kurt Suzuki hadn't been a manager before. Buster wanted something new. Now, did anybody think he was going to go this far out the box? I know I didn't, but I want to give Buster kudos to that, because if he's going to go down, he's going to go down swinging. And he's not going to be swinging for a single, not even double or a triple. Buster wants the whole thing. And that's what Tony Vitello can be. If this works, this will open a brand new pipeline that we have never seen before. It is unprecedented. This has never happened. This has never happened. The only time it has happened is in situations where the coach has already, or the manager has already been associated with a Major League ball club and ended up coming back in some capacity. Nobody when it's just their first time ever, no prior experience in Major League Baseball. So that's just what it is, man. That's just what it is. And I'm getting everything for you guys. This is going to be all the different information. I've kind of pulled it together for you. This was from Peter Thamel. This was this morning at 10 o'clock. Tennessee baseball coach Tony Vitello is finalizing a deal to become the next manager of the San Francisco Giants. Sources tell him and Jeff Passan. He's 47. He will be the first ever to jump from college coach to Major League Baseball without any professional experience. And let me know in the comments. Maybe some of you are worried about this. Right? Obviously, Buster thought this was the right move. Maybe you don't. Maybe, I don't know, Alan. Let's see what happens. So let me know, and we'll discuss, because there is plenty to talk about, specifically when it comes to the money side of things as well. Like I said, unprecedented. He will make around $3.5 million annually, a 3-year deal with the 4th year, and that 4th year could be big for him if he's still hanging around, and hopefully he's doing more than hanging around. Hopefully it's very obvious that he's going to get the option, not like the Bob Melvin situation. It shows that Buster, he's tired of messing around, man. And you ever been in a situation, it almost reminds me a little bit, as we were joking about gambling with FanDuel, it almost reminds me of if you ever find yourself in Vegas, right? And let's say you're in Vegas for, a week is a long time, but let's say you're in Vegas for 3 nights, right? So you want to make sure that unless you hit big, you want to make sure that you have money, right, to last the whole trip. When you get to that 3rd night, it's time to have some fun. And you've already set aside this money. Hopefully you win. But if you don't, that's all fine and good. You've already set aside this money. Let's see if we can walk home with something. Let's see if we can walk home with a big fish story. Going home with 100 here, a couple hundred there. What good is that? Right? Going home with, hey, we lost in the wild card. We scraped into the wild card because the Mets are awful and they don't know how to take care of their business with all the money they're spending. Hey, we were able to sneak into the 3rd wild card. No. Why don't we go out there, go out swinging? All right, maybe you select black on roulette and red hits, but maybe, just maybe, black hits. And you get to go home to whoever it is and say, you'll never guess what happened. We got all this money. We won all this money in Vegas. That's what Buster Posey is attempting to do here. Buster Posey is attempting to say, I'm all in at this point. And it hasn't even been that long with Buster. But Buster says, I'm not really here to mess around. For a while, we didn't even know if Buster was going to be a part of this industry. And we know that Buster is somebody that wants success at a high level, and he doesn't want to wait around either. And that's exactly what we have. So the timeline of events, like I joked with you earlier this week, I'm at the pumpkin patch. I get a text from Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds, who does a great job for us organizing everything. He says, do you see this? He just says, college. The Giants are going college. What are you talking about? I'm driving. So I park, find out what's going on. Wow, this is really happening. I had recently talked to Eric Kane. It's starting to come together. Then things got sketchy. Yesterday, I did not feel good. I did not feel good at all yesterday. It was 72 hours. It had passed. He was at practice, looked like everything was good. I felt like, how much do you have to sell the San Francisco Giants? Right? Turns out that Tony Vitello, there were some things he wanted to take care of. There were some logistical issues. He wanted to make sure everything was good. The Tennessee fan base, they all went out to the ballpark and tried to convince him to stay. So maybe I undersold how tough this was going to be for Tony Vitello. And I also think that this leaked a little bit early, and we were probably a day off. So that 72 hours, that should have ended today. And we didn't have to wait much longer after that. It breaks this morning, and here we are. What a time to be alive. All right, let's keep it moving. We got to get to a quick one. And on the other side, let's discuss Tony Vitello's background and some of the major league talent that he's at least handled, maybe not managed, but at least handled during his tenure as a coach in the college ranks.
And the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Luke Braun, how's it going, my man? Long time no talk. How's everything in Vikings world?
Boy, it's interesting here, but isn't that always the case for both of us? Two of God's least favorite children.
Yeah. The equivalents on both sides of the spectrum, on the AFC and the NFC, a lot of familiarity there. Obviously, the Chargers are hosting this game on Thursday night at SoFi Stadium. So as the host, I will go ahead and let you kick things off. What do you think is the biggest story for the Vikings heading into this game?
Right now in Minnesota, the biggest story is JJ McCarthy, high ankle. When's he going to be back? What's the expectation when he is back? And what can we expect from Carson Wentz in the meantime? Over the course of the week, the Vikings gave JJ McCarthy a workout, see how it goes. But the Vikings haven't done a full practice. They're coming off a really physical, really long game against the Eagles. With 69 offensive reps. Everybody's really beat up. So they've been really restful. And plus a short week travel to the West Coast, which this is the third time the Vikings will have done that on Thursday Night Football, specifically to LA. 2 against the Rams. Brutal. Is the first one against the Chargers. It's horrible, especially 18 days after they get back from a doubleheader in Europe. They got brutalized by the schedule here. So rest has been really important. And now they just they're not practicing for a week. So that to me is part of, this is the roughest part of the schedule, not because of necessarily who the best teams in the league are, but just because of the travel. But obviously, the thing is how it was go into this week. Is he going to play? They give him a workout. He's not there. He's not going to do it. They said maybe if it were a Sunday game, but we're probably looking at JJ McCarthy returning next week against the Lions. So you all get Carson Wentz. Congratulations.
Yay.
It's been rough.
We wanted to see that storyline, right? Obviously, with Jim Harbaugh being the coach of the Chargers and his former quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, being with the Vikings, we were all excited to have that be some storylines heading into this week, but that was not to be, as obviously both teams are dealing with significant injuries. And fortunately for the Chargers, they're getting some very important pieces back on that offensive line, and it is extremely important that they get Joel out there, and that is definitely the biggest story going into this week for the Chargers is getting some reinforcements back. After week 3, the Chargers were missing Joe Alt, Omarion Hampton, Najee Harris, Khalil Mack, Denzel Perriman, and plenty of other big pieces. And so now, we were talking a little bit before we started recording. Joe Alt is going to play. He said as much. He has missed the last several weeks with a high ankle sprain. They put him through a pretty rigorous workout last Sunday to see if he can go. He was doubtful for that game. He wasn't quite ready, but they had started his kind of practice. They didn't really want to put him on IR because if there's any chance to get him to play before the requisite 4 games, then they wanted to make sure to give him every opportunity to do that. And also, the Chargers already have a lot of guys on IR and designated to return, and there's only so many slots that they'll be able to utilize for that. So Joe Alt being back is
we're up against those
boost.
2. Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, it is so important for them to get Joe Alt back because the Chargers offensive line has been a rough watch, Luke. It has been very, very tough to see Austin Deckles out there trying to do his best to protect Justin Herbert's blind side along with the rest of the just subpar play that we've seen. So getting him back on offense, getting Khalil Mack back, and hopefully more involved in the game plan. He only played 12 snaps in his first game back. He actually notched a sack along with within those 12 snaps. So pretty effective there, but very short day at the office. I expect that to expand quite a bit going into this game against the Vikings.
Yeah, we're right there with you with all of the injuries. A lot of guys going on IR designation to return. In fact, there's 121-day window. Maybe we're going to see it's a true questionable with Aaron Jones. I don't think he was designated out on the final depth chart or on the final injury report. So that's one to watch. However, it's an intriguing situation because Jordan Mason's been fantastic in his stead, and we might have a situation where you ride the hot hand there. But the Vikings are also, it's unclear who they're going to play at center. They have Ryan Kelly on IR right now. So the starting center is out. The backup center, Michael Juergens, dealing with a hamstring injury, went out in the Euro trip. Blake Brandel, who has never played center before, had to step in against the Browns D-line, which is a nasty D-line to have to do that against. Holds his own well enough to get the start against Philly. Total mess. Total disaster. Snaps going over Carson Wentz's head, giving up sacks.
I saw that.
So I don't know if they're going to stick with that again or if they're going to go, whoops, we kind of maybe got a little bit too wrapped up in the moment there. And they'll go back to Michael Juergens, who has been active, I think, and for all intents and purposes is past that hamstring injury. So there's all kinds of weird stuff, but we were down to 1 out of 5 starters on the O-line in London. So it's been a really rough injury season. And maybe that's kind of the story of this game is 2 teams that I'm going to correct me if I'm wrong here, underachieved based on the talent that they should have.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is due to injury and who can kind of overcome their problems a little better, who can figure out how to get more out of their depth.
That's 100% accurate. And I think for both of these teams, like it's been a struggle, especially for the Chargers going up against some of the better teams, the better offenses. Like they just got their butts handed to them by the Indianapolis Colts. It was ugly. You know, they got beat by 2 touchdowns, and honestly, it could have been probably 3 or more. The Chargers were not sharp in that game, and they just got way too behind way too quickly. But I had one more question on the offensive line. We talked a little bit about it. Obviously, the left tackle of the Vikings popped up on the injury report very, very late with Christian Darrisaw. What do you have for that situation as far as his availability for tonight's game?
Yeah, Kevin Seifert covers the team for ESPN, and he kind of poked around about it. Essentially, after a big physical game against the Eagles, which Christian Darrisaw played all of. So for Chargers fans who haven't been watching this, Darrisaw's been on a pitch count sometimes this year as he's coming off of a horrible knee injury, ACL and MCL, that he suffered in SoFi on Thursday Night Football last time they made the Vikings do this. So we're going back to SoFi, but there's kind of been, play a full game and then you're a little bit still kind of recovering from it going into the next game, and you're either on a pitch count or you sit out it. So he is a true questionable right now. He was a DNP in the last practice report. But again, the Vikings only did walkthroughs. So all of these injury designations are estimates. So it's like even more cloudy and unknowable, but he had to get a little bit of treatment on that knee this week. And so it's a matter of, another one where if it were Sunday, he might be playing, but because it's a short week and there's travel to the West Coast and all these other factors, it's going to be touch and go. So if it's not Darrisaw, it would be Justin School, who has been a mess, just awful. and outplayed by Blake Brandel, who was drafted as a tackle, was a tackle in college, and actually I think played better than School when he had to go in because School got a concussion at one point. We've been down to third stringers in several places. But if I had my druthers, Blake Brandel would be the backup tackle, and then they would put Juergens back in at backup center. So we have a tackle playing tackle and a center playing center. But apparently, I don't know, the Vikings are smarter than that, I guess.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Peter, both sides seem to be playing down it's not a revenge game. There's no noise there, nothing at all. No, we're past that. We're
no,
happy.
Of course not. Why would anyone think there would be any issues? Why would Aaron Rodgers ever hold a grudge? That is just that would be so unlike him to do that, Chris.
Exactly.
It was funny because David Bakhtiari mentioned this, that it was going to happen, that Aaron Rodgers was going to say all the right things, and Matt LaFleur was going to say all the right things, and Jordan Love was going to say all the right things. But you would not be a human being if you didn't feel it a little, right? Like you would not be a red-blooded American man if you did not feel it just a little bit here, right? Because and you know, you could be anyone. If you're a competitor, you want this game a little bit more. They can say whatever they want. This game is going to mean a little bit more. I feel bad that they're going to put them in those horrible throwback uniforms for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, they look so bad, Peter.
Chris, why did they do that? Why did they? Aaron Rodgers, you get one shot at playing the Packers and you're going to play in the come on. This should have been the 2010 Super Bowl rematch in terms of uniforms. Like, what are we doing? This is nonsense.
Stupid. The Steelers, whenever they want to go to these alternate jerseys, the problem is all the good jerseys for the Steelers are classic looking. So, like, if you're thinking selling jerseys, you got to go with the crazy bumblebee look or like this look that looks. They all look ridiculous.
I have the same problem with the Packers, Chris, because I'm just like, the Packers jerseys are the throwbacks. It's fine. They're exactly. This is the jersey. This has been the jersey from time immemorial. Like, why are we doing this? And even more so in a situation like this. But you're so right. And even with Jordan Love, who Aaron Rodgers, by the way, treated with it is. I have been a critic for those Steelers fans listening that are not familiar with my work. For those of you not familiar with my game, I have been very critical of Aaron Rodgers over the years, and that's not going to be news to my listeners at all. But one thing that he did that I will say is more mature than I would say 98% of people would act is he resented the hell out of the Jordan Love pick, and he never ever took it out on Jordan Love. And that is an incredible testament to maybe a person's ability to compartmentalize. I don't know, but he always directed that anger at the Packers, not Jordan Love. Listen to anyone tell a story of the first couple years when Jordan Love was there. Rodgers was the guy to Love that Brett Favre never was to him, and he set out to be that. And that doesn't mean that the ending wasn't acrimonious. It was. That doesn't mean that Aaron Rodgers didn't want Mark Murphy and or Brian Gutekunst fired in 2021. He did. And so, like, let's be honest about it. Aaron Rodgers is the petty king. No one is pettier in the NFL than Aaron Rodgers. And the good news for the Steelers is their coach is kind of just as petty, like Mike Tomlin. I loved last week when he was like, I don't know what the hell. Like, what did he say? Andrew Barry must be smarter than me. Like, what a just deliciously petty comment. And so that's why this works. That's why they're a good match, I think, in a lot of ways, because they share that. Just like they are you know, I can't say the word, but they are MFers in the best possible way as competitors.
No, I agree. Listen, man, they take this. Listen, Mike Tomlin has a thing called a petty game ball that he hands out, and it's like when a player is playing a team that he has a reason to be a little petty at, and they have a big game against them.
Oh my God,
he'll give them a little petty game ball. Like Russell Wilson actually exposed that to us a bit last year, and we were like, what? He was like, oh yeah, Mike has like the whole petty game ball thing. He does that to guys, and Mike was like, you guys weren't supposed to know that. So Russell Wilson let us in on a little bit that last year, but listen. As a person who's already started to pick up on Aaron Rodgers' tendencies as the reporter in the room, Aaron Rodgers is really good at saying the right thing in the right moment to avoid he's doing all like when he got to Pittsburgh, I was worried like, man, how many times am I gonna have to watch the Pat McAfee show to see what he says is crazy and talks about vaccines?
Yeah, I live that life.
But he's stayed away from that in Pittsburgh. And then that's been refreshing for me as a reporter. But like I've also started to pick up where he does play his game still. For example, the week leading up to the Jets, it's fine. The Jets are the Jets. I'm here to win football games. I'm here about to be about the Steelers. But when he beat the Jets, he was like, oh yeah, I let them know. Like that was a bit part. And after the game was over, he's like, yeah, let them know. But like he talked his talk a little bit after that game. And listen, that's fine. That's okay. But I also understand my job, one of my things about you, do not give people bulletin board material. You do not give the other side put something to slap on the board on Friday and be like, you see what he said about you this week? And that's what Aaron Rodgers is avoiding. And that's what Matt LaFleur is avoiding because both sides respect each other. And I think that's the cool thing about this is that Matt LaFleur, Mike Tomlin, head coach to head coach, a lot of respect. Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, quarterback to quarterback, a lot of respect. And these two sides, they say, hey, let's not give each other let's give the other side any ammunition. Let's focus on ourselves and get through this and come out with the dub. Then we can start talking.
Remember the Seinfeld episode about the fully mutual breakup and how that does not exist? This was a fully mutual breakup. Now that's not to say, well, there is no such thing as a fully mutual breakup, right? But when this happened, Aaron Rodgers wanted to go. The Packers were ready to move on. And so that doesn't mean there were no hard feelings, but both sides got what they wanted ultimately. So I thought Aaron Rodgers, his comments in the locker room yesterday were telling to me. He was asked about this, I believe, by Brooke Pryor from ESPN about, does the distance change the way that you feel about this? And he said the phrase, I was floored by this, Chris. He said, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Mm-hmm. And I thought like, maybe that was a little shade at the Jets, right? Like, because he was like, I'd like to go somewhere else where they're going to give me everything I want, which Green Bay was not going to do. The Jets did. And he found out that didn't make him happy. And the grass is not always greener. And it does seem like he has found a place that does make him happy, where the culture is the way that he wants. And that he seems to have bought in. Chris, he has bought in. We'll get to some of this in the matchups and stuff, but he has bought in a way to Arthur Smith's offense that I just never thought he would. The style that he is playing is just not a style I thought I would see Aaron Rodgers at 41 years old playing. And that is a testament to him. And so I do think this is less acrimonious than it would have been had this been 2023. Like, I think that would have been blood and guts, like F these guys. Like, it would have been a different thing. I think some distance has cooled heads. Brian Gutekunst is not playing. I do think there's probably some more acrimony there between Gutekunst and Rodgers. The general manager doesn't play. The players do. And Matt LaFleur pointed out this week, Chris, there aren't that many Packers that have even played with Aaron Rodgers on this team.
Aaron Rodgers brought that out himself. He was like, I don't know that many people over there now.
Right. It's like Rashawn Gary, Elton Jenkins, and then the 2022 draft class. And like, that's it. Because the 2021 draft class does not exist in Green Bay. And most of the 2020 draft class doesn't exist in Green Bay outside of Rashawn Gary and Darnell. That was the 19 class. But so even so, Jordan Love was in the 20 class, and the rest of that 20 class is out the door. So there just aren't that many guys that even played with him. I think it's less than 5 have played with him for more than one season in Green Bay. So the players are not going to care. This is Matt LaFleur said, this is for you guys to talk about. Here we are talking about it. It is for us to talk about. And it does matter. Like, which side do you think wants this more? Like, whose extra is going to be more on Sunday, you think?
I think Aaron Rodgers wants it, but I think it's more of a nostalgic thing than it is a burn thing. I think he wants to have it in like that thing on his mantle in the back to be like, hey, when I got the Packers, I beat every team in the NFL. Yeah. I did that because this is his only chance he's going to get at that, right? So I think he wants that. Whereas the Packers, it's like if you beat Aaron Rodgers, it's like, okay, huzzah, but like the Packers are Super Bowl favorites to me. Like
Right.
I think like this is a game that I think that they should win by their own merits. And like that's where
they're set up for a couple years here. Like one game is not gonna affect their outlook as much as it will affect Aaron Rodgers' legacy to have won it. Exactly. Which, if you're a Packers fan, is a reason to be, I think, nervous about it, because those sorts of things do matter. And attitude reflects leadership. Like if everyone can sense that this means a little bit extra to Aaron Rodgers, that is incentive for the team to play a little bit harder, to rally around him a little bit. I know this is not, Brett Favre when his dad passed away and like the receivers in that game caught everything on Monday Night Football. Like that was one of just the all-time, I'll never forget watching that game, all-time moment. Because Rodgers has been there for 6-8 months. So it's a different vibe. But that stuff I think does matter, at least on the margins. And we know Rodgers is like the pettiest player in the NFL. Like it will motivate him in a way that it would not motivate most players. He's going to manufacture slights, Chris, if he has to. And the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Buffalo Bills meet up in this Week 8 matchup between the 4-3 Panthers and 4-2 Bills. How you doing, my man?
Julian, as I record this podcast with you from just up the street here in Concord, North Carolina, I know exactly what you're talking about. There is a large contingency of Bills Mafia here in the other Queen City, right? Buffalo is also the Queen City. And I know this is one that's been exciting for many, including myself. Now, I will say a month ago, I was pretty excited. Now I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie to you based on some of the recent trends of both of these teams. But we know it'll be a spirited afternoon here in Charlotte. It'll be a good sports day, right? And I think that's going to be healthy for this town where there hasn't been that much good sports here lately. And I think this is going to be a good one on Sunday afternoon.
No, I know Charlotte FC, they're in the playoffs in MLS, so that's great. The Hornets are back in town, which could be a good thing depending upon how the season goes. But as far as looking at this game on Sunday, the energy and the buzz that's going to be there in Uptown, it was already going to be there because I'm expecting a lot of the locals who are Bills fans to be there at the stadium. I'll be there covering the game. I know you'll be in attendance as well. And I'm excited just to see what it looks like around the stadium with all that going on. But also, this is a game for Carolina where it's actually meaningful football, which they have not had in a long time as they sit here above 500 for the first time since October of 2021. So looking at this game from the Bills' perspective, Joe, what is the biggest storyline heading into this matchup?
Well, this is a Bills team that's coming out of the bye, riding a 2-game losing streak, and that's not very characteristic of this Bills team under Sean McDermott. And Sean McDermott's been really good at getting wins out of the bye, 8-0 so far in his tenure. This is his 9th opportunity to get a win out of the bye, and boy, this team needs it. A couple of losses that were just very uncharacteristic against the Falcons and the Patriots. And look at it like this. The Patriots scored 23 points. The Falcons scored 24. The Bills lost both games, which is very surprising. They kind of got in their own way offensively with some turnovers, with some penalties that put them behind the sticks, and it just got a lot harder than it typically is. And so you come out of this bye looking for a win, hungry for a win, and knowing that Kansas City is the next game. You drop this one, you're looking at 500 potentially if you can't beat Kansas City in 2 weeks. So this is a really important game for Buffalo. And the exciting part for the Bills is that they get some defensive reinforcements, and they've needed this. This defense has really struggled this year, and they're getting Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi, 2 players they signed in free agency, and they didn't have a ton of cap space to work with, and they prioritized getting these 2 guys to elevate their defensive line rotation. Hoyt is an edge rusher. Ogunjobi, a local, right? Went to Ragsdale. Played his ball at Charlotte, the first ever draft pick out of Charlotte. So he gets to make his Bills debut here in Charlotte, and that's a big deal. The Bills rotate a ton up front, and so far this year, 60% of their defensive tackle snaps have been played by rookies or practice squad players. And so Larry Ogunjobi is a welcomed addition as a veteran with some know-how to this group. And there's also a dynamic at safety where Taylor Rapp has been a very disappointing player so far this year. And there's been a knee injury, and they're not sure when he's going to be back. Julian, that screams soft benching to me, and potentially the opportunity for Jordan Poyer, longtime Bill, that's kind of come back to get another opportunity to start there. So this is a Bills defense that needs to play better, and they're getting some reinforcements, which gives you some hope that it can come together in ways that it needs to for the Bills to be the team they're supposed to be this year.
Yeah, and man, life in the AFC gets so real. Like you mentioned there, if the Bills somehow drop this game on Sunday, Kansas City next week, and that's not the Chiefs team that we saw the first couple weeks of the season. No. They look like the full-fledged Chief team that Buffalo has beaten the last couple regular seasons, just when in the playoffs, things haven't gone your way at this point in time. So we'll see how that plays out next week. But looking at this game from a Panthers perspective, it will be interesting to see who's out there for Buffalo defensively, because Carolina, not sure right now who their quarterback's going to be. Now, this has been interesting to me. We saw on Monday all the NFL insiders like Tom Pelissero, who was first, Ian Rappaport, and Adam Schefter report that Bryce Young sustained a high ankle sprain in that win on Sunday against the Jets, where he was stepped on late in the third quarter, walked off to the locker room under his own power, had a slight limp, didn't look to be something that was going to be significant that would keep him out for a long period of time. Maybe a game, but nothing more than that. So those reports come out that Bryce Young is not going to play. On Monday, Dave Canales tells us that it's a day-to-day situation with Bryce Young, and he does not want to say what the severity of the ankle injury is, even though all the reports and people that we trust and know to be right when these things are reported are saying he's not going to play. Fast forward today on Wednesday as we're recording this, Bryce Young did not practice. He was off to the side. And for the folks who don't understand that, when you see someone off to the side of practice during a media viewing portion where they're typically just stretching, doing individual drills once, maybe some special team stuff, that guy ain't going to play. And that was the case today on Wednesday with Bryce Young. So Dave's saying it's still day to day. I'm anticipating that Andy Dalton's going to be the starter on Sunday and that his backup will likely be Hendon Hooker. Now, Mike White, who was in Buffalo last year, has been brought to the practice squad, trying to get a little information there about the Bills. Certainly, Dave Canales said they would not shy away. He said, hey, he's a Panther now, so no reason for him not to tell us all the knowledge he has about the offense that former Panthers OC Joe Brady has up there right now in Buffalo. All the Panther connections, Shaq Thompson and Bean, Sean McDermott. We used to call it Panthers North. I think that's kind of a pejorative for Buffalo fans at this point in time, considering how well the Bills have gone the last couple of years and looking down here in Carolina. So there's a mystery, and I put that in quotes, as far as whether Bryce Young's going to play. Newsflash, he's not playing, guys. So Andy Dalton will be out there on Sunday, and I think Andy can get the job done. We've seen the last 2 years, the first time he started against Seattle 2 years ago, last year against the Raiders, he's thrown for 300 Bills. The only time the Panthers done that so far this season was week 2 in that comeback attempt in Arizona. Outside of that, Bryce Young has not been able to throw for over 200 yards in any of their games, including their last 3 wins against Miami, against Dallas, and against New York on Sunday. So possibly the passing offense might see a boom, at least for 1 week of Andy out there. So, yeah, that's the main storyline. Will Bryce Young play? The answer is no.
Yeah, and I think that makes this game a little bit more interesting. I think Bryce Young certainly had his moments, high and low, but Andy Dalton, I think you kind of know what you're going to get. He's a veteran. He's seen every defense, and I think he can keep the offense on schedule. And we know Carolina's going to want to come in and run the ball, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about here the rest of the way. But Andy Dalton, as a veteran that can hit his back foot and know where to go with the football against the Bills defense that's offered a lot of space in the secondary, I think there's a level of concern that it is Andy Dalton on the Bills side of things, and maybe there was a better chance to win this game with Bryce Young at quarterback. So Carolina's 4-3, and it's less to do with their quarterback play, right? It's been about running the ball. It's been the improvements on defense. And, I think a veteran like Andy Dalton might be the right ticket for Carolina and give them their best chance to win on Sunday.
Yeah, and Rico Dowdle was excellent in those wins against Miami and Dallas when Chuba Hubbard was out with a calf injury. But I will give Bryce Young credit to some of the throws that he made in that comeback against the Dolphins and then in that win against Dallas. So he may not put up gaudy numbers or really be efficient throughout the game, but in the fourth quarter, and that's really been throughout his career, when they've needed him to make plays, he's made those game-winning type of plays. Just the problem is can you get it down in, down out in the first 3 quarters and not just at the end when you got to have it? It's nice that you can have it at those point in times, but at some point in time, he's going to have to be a little bit more consistent moving forward. And I'll be curious to see how the play calling adjusts with Andy Dalton as a starting quarterback, at least the presumed starter from my perspective and what's been reported. And we'll see whether Bryce will be able to go. My expectation is that will not be the case.